Welcome back to Breaking Dawn. The doctors accused of negligence while performing a routine procedure on 10-year-old Zayyaan Sayed have handed themselves over to authorities after warrants for their arrest were issued. Pediatrician Dr. Peter Beale and anesthesiologist Dr. Abdullah Mushni appeared in court yesterday on charges of culpable homicide. They were each granted bail of 10,000 rand with conditions. The case is set to resume in March of 2020. Meanwhile, the South African Society of Anesthesiologists condemned the warrants as a threat to the healthcare delivery in the country. The attorney for the 24 families who laid the charges, SSA Vice President Dr. Lance Lazarson, joins us on the line, and Sinenhlanhla Mnguni joins us in studio. Gentlemen, good morning. Doctor, I want to start with you. From the association's perspective, what is your view on the two warrant of arrest and now the court appearance of the two health code professionals in the Sayed matter?
Okay, so thank you for asking me to your show. I think the first thing that, just in terms of the case, I would prefer not to comment on the merits of the case itself. The only thing I want to say about the case is that in any loss of a family member, in particular a child, it's very difficult for anyone to comprehend what that is like for a family. And the expected anger and requirement for answers is important, and we extend our condolences to the family. In terms of the warrant of arrest, and this is really where we're coming from, whenever there's a loss of life or medical complication, there has to be a comprehensive, and we all wish a speedy investigation for both the family and the practitioners involved, as well as the public. And that is normally through a regulatory framework of an inquest through the Health Professions Council. Now, if there's a loss of trust in that, where some of the professionals, and particularly families, might feel that the Health Professions Council is not delivering on that mandate, the Directorate of Public Prosecutions can itself institute a formal inquest. So then, if medical negligence is established, I believe that all professionals, medical professionals and the public would expect punitive sanction to be measured out, and that would happen in a court of law. But what has happened here is particularly concerning. So without, as I say, our particular knowledge of the events of the case, we know what's been reported in the media, but we as a society and most of the public will not know the exact events of the case because there has been no inquest. There's two issues that are a bigger issue for SARS. The first is that there has been a failure of this inquest process. So there has been no investigation that has then said, from an anesthetic perspective, for example, that there has been medical negligence. There has been absolutely a complication of medical care that resulted in a death, and that itself needs to be fully investigated to at least prevent it from happening in future, but also to establish if there's medical negligence. Then if we work on the presumption of innocence until proven guilty in our country, we then see that an arrest warrant has been served and these two individuals have been arrested to secure their attendance in court. That is what an arrest warrant is about. We need to get someone to court. Now, this can be done through a written notice or a summons. It doesn't have to be done through arrest, because arrest, by definition, as we've seen what the outcome is you have a restriction of movement and obviously your dignity and privacy. So we have to then say what will happen in our country if doctors go to work every day, and I'm one of them, and we fear that if any medical complication happens, without any investigation afterwards, what's going to happen to the system and to me? Will I be arrested and charged criminally, or will things be investigated? Because ultimately, and I'm going to draw a parallel here, when you make a car, for example, there's a manual, robots put the car together, everything by right at the end, the car should come out 100% normal and good and in good working condition. And we know that that's not the case. Cars come out that don't work very well. Then we contrast that to humans. We're not trivial human beings. Every single human is different anatomically, physiologically, how they respond to things in life, how they respond to drugs and to invasive things like surgery. And then their genetics are different. So we have very different outcomes on every single patient doing exactly the same thing. I don't that really has been, it's unprecedented in the country that arrest warrants are issued for negligence. We have to, as a society, step back and say, is this something that can sustain as a country going forward?
So the inquest process, which you spoke about earlier, doesn't necessarily mean that would mean the exclusion of a criminal process. Those two processes can happen at the same time. They can be the kind of internal self-regulatory process I think you were referring to, but also as an option, individuals can also then pursue the criminal matter.
So yes, they are individual processes and can potentially happen simultaneously. But think about it in another domain. So if you lodged a charge of, let's say, theft against me, would I be arrested immediately, or would there be some investigation to at least show that theft occurred, number one, and that I am the party that is likely to have caused the theft? Now, we do know that these two doctors were looking after the child, and so that is obviously a given. But the inquest process can happen in one of two ways. One is through the Health Professions Council, which is that regulatory process through the council. But in the event that we don't believe that that system's working, the Directorate of Public Prosecutions, in other words, the criminal system, can itself institute a formal inquest where the doctors, experts would all come together, give opinion, and after that process, which doesn't have to be months, it can be very speedily carried out. After that process, the Directorate of Public Prosecutions would say, is there a case to prosecute or not? And then they can institute criminal charges and do exactly what they've done, but also not necessarily do they need to institute arrest. They could say, Dr. Lance, Dr. Lance, please come to court on this day. I'm going to go to court. I'm not a flight risk. People know me in my community. I'll be there. So we just have to look at the process and what's going on and say, is this something we can sustain as a country and keep professionals, not only doctors, I mean, if you're an engineer, are you going to go to work because you think if something is slightly out of kilter, I'm going to get arrested for it?
Dr. Lazison, we're going to have to leave it at that. I do need to come to Sinenhlanhla. Thank you very much for your time. Sinenhlanhla, the doctors handed themselves over. Thank you for coming in. Appeared in court. They were granted bail. The matter has been postponed to March 2020. Thus far, are you happy with the outcome? I know there'd been some frustration because of the manner in which the Health Professionals Council of South Africa had been dealing with what the doctor was referring to, the inquest. But now the criminal matter, which is separate to the inquest, are you happy with how that's been proceeding? And what is the latest on the inquest? Do you have any insight on that?
Look, I must say that in as far as the criminal process, I'm very satisfied with how the state has conducted itself and how they are sort of, bringing justice to the Sayed family and the other families who have also lost children as a result of what we deem was negligence by medical practitioners. In as far as the amount of the families have been contacted and have been liaising with the Health Professionals Council, but what's concerning is that some of their complaints date as far back as 2009, and one only wants to sort of question why it's only receiving attention now that the matter's in the media spotlight, under the media spotlight, So it's a bit concerning that nothing has been done and up until a time where this matter received media attention.
So the 24 families, is this now being treated as almost a class action suit? How do the 24 families, what kind of action are you pursuing with them?
Look, at this stage, it's not a class action suit per se, but you must understand the different merits to each and every case. There have been, for instance, 8 deaths, and then about 16 children who are injured and who require, in most cases, medical attention for the rest of their lives. So we have to sort of look at them individually at this stage and assess, with each case, what course of action is best to take in order to ensure that justice is served to the parents of these children.
So that also means that then you will be pursuing different charges. So in the case of the 8 deaths, that could be culpable homicide. Indeed. But then in the case of the 16, there would be different charges there as well.
That's correct. But ultimately, the National Prosecuting Authority would be the guide in terms of what charges they would prefer against the doctors. So at this stage, obviously, we're leaving it in the hands of the state. They've in essence shown that they are serious about holding those who are responsible for these deaths and these injuries to account. And we're very confident that ultimately these matters will receive the justice that they so desperately deserve. I mean, I understand the doctor that spoke earlier on behalf of the medical body. He isn't au fait with the facts of the matter. Understand why the National Prosecuting Authority took the steps that it took in bringing the two accused to court. It's a case also of, I mean, I can understand as a medical practitioner, he would want to protect those within his fraternity. I mean, we've in essence, as we are discussing the inquest before the Health Professional Council, seen a reluctance by these medical bodies to prosecute those of their own. You know, it's very difficult, and I can understand a bit of a conflict where you have to prosecute someone that is ultimately in the same profession as you, knowing that full well that this could be, these same circumstances could befall you at some later date. It's very difficult.
You were speaking about the